Good evening and welcome to the September 27th meeting of the Stow Selectboard. We have a full complement of the board this evening in the room with us. Let's see. For anyone who is not aware, this meeting is being recorded on Zoom and for Stow TV. All right. Why don't we kick it off with any public comment for anything that is not on the agenda? Any hands? Nope. Nope. All right, seeing none, I will move to board member comments. Does anyone have any comments this week? Hector.
Still being new here, I'll do the best I can to make this short. Number one, to commemorate that we're in the middle of celebrating Hispanic and Latin American Heritage Month. Unfortunately, I wasn't quick enough in figuring out how to do a proclamation to send in for us to discuss, so at least we can make it a topic on the comments. And also, Happy New Year to all of those that follow the Jewish traditions, since it's Rosh Hashanah. And not to open up a can of worms, but I noticed something from Kate Hogan about how the MWRA has opened up and reduced the cost to join the water resource. I don't know if that's something we've ever looked into. I'm sure that's a planning board thing, but.
We don't have the infrastructure in town. We don't have
Right.
pipes, so we'd have to run water mains throughout the entire
Right.
town.
Which would be any time.
Hundreds of millions of
Hundreds
dollars.
of millions.
It's $1 million per mile to run a water main.
Okay,
is the average
I just
cost.
thought it'd be worth highlighting that it is an option, though an expensive one. That was my only comments.
All right. Anybody else? Nope. Okay. Do we have any recognition? No. Unless anyone has recognition that they would have sent in comments. All right. I'm going to kick it off to Denise for the town administrator's report.
Thank you. As of September 22nd, we have 8 cases of COVID in town. Our positivity rate is down, even though we still have 8 cases, but we are now at a 3.3% positivity rate. So we are trending in the right direction. The flu clinic will be held at Pompo on Saturday, October 15th. Information, including the pre-registration requirement, can be found on our website and Facebook, and there is a pre-registration requirement. You must go on, you will be given an appointment, so we don't want just folks showing up there. They will not take you if you're not pre-registered. The Board of Health has free COVID home test kits available. They are available at Pompo, the Stow Food Pantry, the Board of Health office, and the Randall Library. They will also have supplies available at the flu clinic for those that want a kit on that day. I will be holding my next discussions with Denise next Wednesday, October 5th at Pompo from 9:30 to 10:30 a.m. There are no appointments required. Anyone's welcome to come in and meet with me if you have comments, questions, concerns. Feel free to stop by. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and some may recall last year we did sort of the remembrance flags outside on the bushes around the building. We're actually going to do sort of walls at Pompo, the library, and here in Town Building. So folks can stop by, fill out a ribbon in memory or support of someone, or share your words of encouragement and hang it on our wall for the month of October. A reminder to the board that next Tuesday is our joint board meeting on the Town Hall project, which will be held at the Town Hall. Also, please note the chair has scheduled your meeting to begin at 6:45, as the Collings Foundation is having their event on Columbus Day and missed the deadline to get their paperwork in for tonight's meeting. So we will be meeting with the Collings Foundation at 6:45, and the joint boards meeting will begin at 7 p.m. And Friday, September 16th, representatives from the town met with the MVP grant representative from the state for a walkthrough of Stow Acres. We had a tour of the property, then we came back here and discussed the grant requirements and the timeline. So that process has officially kicked off, and we'll continue to ramp up through the process. We are in the initial stages, but just so you know, we are officially underway with that grant and those requirements. And that's it this evening.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions or comments? No? Okay. So next up, we have our assessor, Kristen Fox, to discuss the fiscal year 23 appraisals. I believe we've got Kristen on Zoom.
Hi, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, great. All right. So the fiscal 23 values were approved by the Department of Revenue Division of Local Services on September 9th. They are currently posted on the town website. They're on the front home page. They're also on the assessor's page. When I post them, I usually leave them up for about a week, and then I take them down, let people, take a look at them, call, ask questions. I want to point out, we don't have to do this every year. We normally only post values during a recertification year, but I post them every year because it's a little less shocking when people get their bills. And if there is a change that needs to be made, it allows us to make that change and that doesn't hit the overlay. So it's kind of a win-win for everybody. So like I said, they'll be up for about a week. There's a very large increase in the values this year, and single-family homes are up an average of 15% this year. That's 15. Fiscal 23 is an interim adjustment year, which means that even though we have to adjust the values, it's not the same as a recertification year. Those happen every 5 years. Our last recertification was fiscal 21. Our next one is going to be fiscal 26. Condos are up about 9%. So being an interim adjustment year and any normal adjustment year, values go up normally like maybe 2 to 4%. In our last recertification in fiscal 21, they went up 7. So 15 is a very large increase. So I just want everybody to be aware of that. So I also want to point out, just because values went up an average of 15% does not mean that everyone's tax bill is going to go up 15%. So, obviously that's based on what they vote to spend at town meeting. We haven't determined the tax rate yet. That won't be set until November. I also want to point out that the next round of bills going out that are due November 1st will not reflect these values. These values are going to be reflected in the 3rd and 4th quarter bill, which are the ones that are due in February 1st and May 1st. I don't know if there's any questions or comments.
Any questions or comments? Ellen?
Have you talked to other towns? Are they seeing similar kinds of increases in this
I
area?
talked to my Department of Revenue advisor, and she told me that in this Middlesex County area, 15 to 20% was not uncommon this year for the towns that have already had their values approved. That's basically what they're seeing. So closer to 20 for some towns. So, and I hate to say it, but we have 1 quarter left in calendar year 2022, which is going to determine the values for fiscal 24. And I'm seeing the same big increase probably for next year, because for some reason the prices are just off the charts. So, and I know the feds have raised their interest rates at least twice now, and it's not having any effect. So, could slow down. We'll see. Watchful waiting.
Thank you, Kristen, for coming. I think it's important that we hear from the assessor before these bills start coming out. All right, so if
Can I ask a question?
Yeah,
Kristen?
absolutely.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Kristen, if someone has a question, what should they do?
They can call our office, obviously. I think we've received only a couple of phone calls so far. I encourage people to go on the website, go to the assessor's page. On the left-hand side, there's an item called Vision Online Database. Look at your property record card. The values will be last year's values, but all the information on the card regarding, number of bathrooms, whether you have a finished basement, square footage, all those things should probably be the same from last year, unless you pull a building permit and did something, extreme to change your house. But we always encourage people to look at the data, because if there's a mistake, we need to know about it so we can fix it.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? No. All right, thank you so much for coming in. Or for zooming in. All right, so next up, we have an appeal of a public shade tree removal. And so I think we've received a letter from Mr. Fletcher, who is our tree warden. And if you'd like to just kind of give us an overview of what we're looking at, what we're asked to do,
Sure.
that would be fantastic.
Um,
Thank you.
Well, as you said, hello, select people. It's an appeal of an objection to the cutting of a shade tree that occurred. The objection occurred in writing at the public hearing.
Okay.
So let me start at the beginning. I got a request from the resident at 389 Taylor Road. He wanted to cut a tree while he was doing some other tree cutting on his property because it would be significantly less expensive to have it done with the other work that's being done. And it was being done as a favor to his neighbor who was at 386, the Blouse, who are very concerned about this tree because it's leaning directly over their house from the other side of the road. That's how tall it is. It's a 30-inch tall pine that's leaning precipitously towards the road and towards the house at 386. I looked at it and I couldn't find anything wrong with the tree, other than the fact that it was leaning
Okay.
and it had a lopsided crown in the direction of the lean. But it was alive and healthy. So my policy in the past has been to not declare a tree like that to be an imminent hazard,
Okay.
which is what I would have to do, declare it a danger, in order to have it be cut down or allowed to be cut down without holding a hearing. So as I've done in the past, I held the hearing. Duly posted hearing. I think you should have it all in your packages there. And at the hearing, I got two letters, one signed by some folks who aren't a direct abutters, but 5 different people signed it in objection. It was more of a generic objection to trees in general, not this one in particular. And I got a letter in support, obviously, from the Blouse, who are the ones who would be mostly affected if this tree was to fall. So that's why we're here. Because of the objection, the statute says the selectmen get to make the decision on whether or not the tree should be cut. So now it's up to you. I did a little list of pros and cons. And I hope I explained the lead up to this well enough that you understood. Reasons to retain the tree are as it's alive and apparently healthy. It's good habitat, contributes to the health of the environment. But the reasons to authorize its removal are numerous. It's got a significant lean. It's a lopsided crown with all the weight towards the direction of the lean. It has 3 significant targets if it were to fall: the wires, the road, and the house across the street. All 3 would be impacted if it was to break or fall, which would be hugely expensive for the taxpayers if it were to come down. And it could cause injury if there was someone unfortunate enough to be in its path. It will continue to grow in the same direction, increasing the weight over those targets. It's a pine tree. If it wasn't a pine tree, we wouldn't be here. If that was a big old oak leaning that way, I would have said absolutely not. It's fine the way it is, but it's a pine tree. And I've seen enough apparently healthy pine trees break or completely topple over. And we've seen that a lot of apparently healthy pine trees are full of ants, and when they break or fall over or get cut for one reason or another, they're hollow in the middle, in spite of their apparent health, a healthy appearance. As an evergreen, as opposed to a deciduous tree, it holds its foliage in the winter, which in turn can hold large loads of snow and ice. So we have a low probability because it's a healthy tree, but high consequence if it was to come down. Any potential danger can be eliminated at no cost to the taxpayers if a timely decision is made tonight. And it will be replaced by several trees on both sides of the road. Both abutters have agreed and offered and agreed to plant multiple trees to replace this one. And we'll discuss the species and varieties and placement of those if this tree comes down. That's a pretty good list of reasons to authorize its removal, in my opinion. I see Mr. Blau here. I think he sent you a picture, I know he did. I also have a picture from the ground. His is rather compelling, from the sky. The one from the ground isn't as compelling, but you can see, I didn't send this to you, but like I say, if that was an oak tree leaning like that, I wouldn't worry about it one bit. But if you look at the base of the tree and look straight up,
Right.
all the way is in one direction.
Okay.
Um,
You just want to see?
let's see that.
Okay, thank you very much. Any board members have any questions for Mr. Fletcher?
Bruce.
Hi.
Would you say that tree has reached its mature height,
That's hard to say.
given that it's by a road that has salt and it's in a compromised growing condition?
I would say if it hasn't reached its mature height, it's at its maximum height. And it's a tall tree. And it just reminded me of something. I looked at the roots too. And there's a lot of elevated roots as if it's been moving. And not directly behind it where I would expect, but on the sides. So it clearly moves enough that the roots have lifted. And I would not want to be living underneath that tree, under the tread of that tree.
No, I've seen many pines drop their branches and when they get to a certain height, and if they're not in the perfect growing habitat, which it sounds like this one is not.
It's not so close to the road that I think one of the reasons why it still appears healthy is because it's not right adjacent to the road. It sits back a little ways. It's still definitely within the right of way. I checked that to make sure it was a town tree and met the definition of a public shade tree. But it's set back just enough that it's probably not as affected by salt as it would have been if it was closer to the road.
Okay.
But eventually, time will take its toll on it.
Okay, thank you, that's all I have.
Thank you. Anything else? Any questions? Hector?
No, I took a look at the tree yesterday myself and saw how elevated the roots were, and that was gonna be my question, but you already answered that.
Great. Oh, nothing? Do you have any questions? And I'm assuming that these lovely people who are here are either the abutters or the people who wanna take the trees down, so if anybody wanted to speak, just make sure you state your name and your address.
My name is Paul Carberry. I'm a resident at 389 Taylor Road. I made the request to take the tree down. We've been watching that tree for several years, and it has been growing, and it is continuing to lean more and more.
Okay.
When the Blaus first, we had been having conversations about it over the last several years. We weren't taking trees down, and so, but when I was looking at other trees that we were going to take down at the property, I thought, well, I'd like to find out if first of all, if that tree is on town property or on ours, and, consider taking it down. And I got a very reasonable cost to include it with the rest of the trees. So, that's why we're here. As Bruce mentioned, the elevator roots are, and we had an arborist come out, was one of the companies that came and looked at the trees to give us pricing, and he indicated there's an argument to be made that tree is unstable. So, that's why we're concerned about it.
I'm Tom Blau, and this is my wife Lisa. We're the ones directly below the tree.
Perfect.
The only thing that I think, you had a real good overview of the tree. The only thing that I would add is there are no trees the same height as that one anywhere behind it or around it
Right.
to block any wind.
Right.
So that tree catches all the wind, and storms are only gonna get stronger, as the meteorologists say, so.
Is there anyone on Zoom?
No one that has their hand raised.
Okay. Any further discussion? No?
Well, I can tell you my opinion.
Yeah.
I think that the tree should come down. I think the team, for lack of a better word, the abutters and neighbors have gone above and beyond by proposing mitigation planting.
Mhm.
And working with Bruce on species selection, I think is more than wonderful. So I'm personally in favor of having the tree be removed.
Do we want to take a straw poll or do we want to do a motion?
I think you're good.
Okay. Then I will take a motion.
Madam Chair, I move to support the removal of the 30-inch white pine tree in front of 389 Harvard Road.
Second.
All in favor?
Taylor.
Taylor Road, that is.
Madam
That's
Chair, I
the
move
wrong
to
one.
support the removal of 30-inch white pine tree in front of 389 Taylor Road.
There we go.
That I'll second.
All right, any further discussion? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. Congratulations. Thank you for going through all the steps. And I'm sure you'll be very happy
Yes, we
as
will.
hurricane season is coming, that is gone. All right, best of luck to you all.
Thanks,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Fletcher.
Thank you, Mr. Fletcher, for the, for that overview.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Thorough
Thank you.
report.
As always.
Seriously.
Thank you, Bruce.
All right, so next on our agenda is a request from the Randall Trustees to run a trivia event that they would like the board. Well, is Andy on?
Yes.
Okay. Andy, why don't you give us a overview of what you're thinking, and then if the board has questions, and then
Yeah, no problem. So we are trying to raise money as the trustees
So, Andy?
for not. Yeah.
So you gotta. Could you just identify yourself and your address for the record, please?
Andy Ricker, 11 Brook Mill Road.
Great.
We are trying to. Oh, I see my director is there. Wonderful. We're trying to raise money for not the trust, but for the library itself. The Friends do a great job of this as well. That is certainly noted. But we're trying to kind of not necessarily go out on our own, but we just want to prove that we can do this. So ever since becoming a trustee, I've wanted to run this trivia contest. And let me briefly tell you how it's going to work. Essentially, we're going to get people in town to participate in the trivia that will be run by someone that Marcy has gathered for us to actually run the event. So maybe I was misleading in my email, but the select board won't be running the trivia, but more likely participating in the trivia event, which I think would be fun. And I can't stress enough that this is a fundraising thing. It's a fun event. It's not. We're not going to try to nail the select board on how much information they don't know about a particular subject or something silly like that. It's all for the purpose of raising money for the library. And I can see Chief is sitting there. He's already agreed to participate with us. We have Senator Eldridge on board. We have Representative Hogan on board. Not to get political, so it's not going to be a political event. It just happens that we get a lot of politicians involved in this. It'll be a general trivia event, nothing crazy, but we're trying to stretch ourselves out here and see what we can pull off for the library and maybe raise a little cash for them.
Excellent. I had a couple of questions. I'm gonna kick it off to the other board members first, if anybody has any questions about the event, and then, yeah. Nothing? Do you have any questions?
Except I have to forewarn you that I seriously am not good at trivia, but I'm game. I'll be the first out, I'll drag you guys down.
I'm very good at trivia, I'm game, but I still have questions. Alright, so as someone who has planned events for a large part of her life, I just have a few questions, just event-based. How are you expecting to raise money? Like, who's paying for it?
That's a great question. We assume that we would plan on having the participants kick in money, and we're not sure. It's obviously not. It won't be something based on gambling. Obviously, that's outside of our realms of money raising at this point. But it's something we haven't necessarily hammered out the details for it. We're definitely going to have participants kick in money. And we were hoping to have people not bet on the team they think would win, but support the team that they think would win. Event planning is not my strong suit, as it may be yours. So I have Marcy on board to help me out with that. But we haven't necessarily hammered out all the details yet. But we were looking to get participants first, and so we could publicize the event, and then figure out the smaller details as they come.
Okay.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure, you just invited us to be at an event that we pay for?
Well, that's what I was gonna clarify. By participants, Andy, you mean the board members and the chief, and those are the folks you're gonna be asking to make a donation?
No, the folks in town. This was going to be an open competition to people in town as well, where they can create their own teams, trivia teams, and participate in the contest and try to beat everybody else involved.
Okay. That makes a little more sense. Yep. And is it going to be in person?
Yeah, we plan on doing it at the library October 28th in the evening.
Okay.
Do you have times yet squared away?
We were thinking 7 p.m.
Okay.
You'll all have to do this without me, I'll be out of the country.
I know. I don't even know if I'll be around.
I'm also I'm not sure I'm great at trivia, but I'm game.
Okay.
And I won't be around.
All right.
Good in my
It's a
certain
Friday.
categories.
Exactly.
And I will just add, so there are no quorum requirements, because you're obviously not gonna be
Because it's
talking about
not
town
like
business.
yeah.
So there certainly can be a majority
Unless
of
we
the board
get-
participating.
Yeah, and
Okay.
no questions about.
No questions about
town business.
We certainly don't expect the select board to be voting on anything that
Yeah,
evening.
I mean,
nor the
yeah,
trustees, so.
well.
Andy, can we rope in our town administrator onto the team?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I don't know. Yeah.
Assuming she wants to be in Stow on a
She
Friday.
clearly doesn't want me part of the time. That's quite all right, I'm all set then.
All right. Do we have to vote on this?
Yes.
We do.
If the board members are gonna participate,
All
you
right.
should.
All right. I think I would love to see a little more details about it, but I would.
So would I.
I would be willing to save the date for the time.
Right.
Yeah. All right. I guess I'll take a motion then.
Madam Chair, I move that a subset of the select board participate in the Randall Trustees trivia event.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. That's unanimous. Well, you'll get some of us there. Just send
Sounds
us.
better than none.
Send
Thank
us
you
more
very much.
information.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll get with Marcy immediately.
All right. Thanks, Andy.
Thanks, you.
All right. Next. is we are going to go over the town administrator's performance evaluation and fiscal year 23 goals. Ingeborg, since you were not here last meeting, we sent additions or subtractions or edits to the initial draft of the performance evaluation back to Dolores, because there was not a consensus among the board.
I watched the tape, so I'm aware.
Fantastic. So this is the new language, and I will open it back up to the board for any comments or questions. And once we approve that, then we will all as a group talk about the goals for 23. So whoever wants to start. Courtney, I see your hand.
I just say that although I think we're a lot closer, I am not ready to release this as the final version of this document. I feel that, with all due respect to Dolores, I don't feel as though it reads well. And I just as soon see if we can polish it a little bit more. I'd be happy I'm better with a red pen marking up a copy, and I'd be happy to make a marked up copy and have it scanned to people or however you wanna proceed, but.
I'm sorry, I missed that last statement. What did you say? You're better with the red pen and what?
And paper, as far as making certain kinds of corrections. I mean, some of my comments are really just about English that is written in, so I don't know if we could have synopsized things a little bit more just so that it reads well and feels like it represents us as a town well.
Hector, did you say you have your hand up?
I did. First, I'd like to say that this is a huge improvement over what we saw the last time. And I think it's a great improvement. But being the newbie, I was a little confused about, and this kind of delves into the goals, the sections and how they're headed, decision-making, communication, personal development, are those sections going to remain the same year to year? And where were the goals from last year?
If I may.
Yeah.
So we voted on the framework of it before you were elected, and went through all of it. And it was basically based on the evaluation form that we had put together the year prior, because it was Denise's first evaluation year. Now it's something that we came up with, and Ellen and Courtney can speak to this if my memory is not serving me correctly, based on some other town administrator evaluation type reports. It didn't come kind of out of the ether, it was that. And I think the idea, it's hard because this is only the second year that this form has been used. And I think that some of it, the second year, even as I was personally filling out some sections of it, I thought, ooh, maybe that is not something that could work, or maybe it's something to be discussed really more than just moving the form forward for the future. So certainly, I think it depends on the makeup of the board, whoever is chairing, to decide, sort of what the evaluation form looks like moving forward. But this is the one we had decided on for this year.
And at the meeting that the board voted to use, so first of all, it's Bolton and Lancaster both use a similar form. It actually came from them. At the meeting where the board decided they wanted to keep the form as was last year, without any changes, we discussed the goals that were set for me in the prior year. We had that discussion going into the evaluation process.
Okay.
So we had that conversation, and then the board was to take that into consideration while they provided their comments on the review.
The main reason I asked was I wasn't sure how the goals we're going to discuss fit into the review, because a lot of the subheadings here I think are great subheadings, and I wouldn't want to see them go away. I'd love to see how Denise continues to improve in personal development and communication and all the other areas. But just didn't know where the goals fit with all the subheadings. But again, overall, I think this is a huge improvement over what was presented last time.
Ellen?
I think Hector raises a really good point, really, I mean, given how much, especially when I look at last year's goals, how much progress we made, that they really should be attached, at the very least, attached to the review, and maybe add,
Yeah.
maybe going forward, we add a section that specifically, or we remind ourselves to comment on those goals within those headers, cause when I'm looking through the list, it's like, oh, they actually didn't get mentioned very much, which
Right.
is ironic,
Right.
given
Right.
Right, there isn't a goals section.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
Any more?
No comments.
No? All right. I,
If I can add one more thing.
sure.
I will agree with Courtney that grammatically this doesn't feel great, but I'm also not an English major, so.
Yes, I do, sorry.
No, I mean, just say, I think my concern, which I've mentioned several times, is that I think the paragraphs are sort of supposed to be a summary of the comments, and they got their, I think she tried to come up with a somewhat of a hybrid, but they get wordy and they don't send a clear message in each section, which is really what the point was of the summary of comments, as opposed to quoting whatever anybody wrote. So, I support Courtney going through and trying to make it a little cleaner and more succinct, perhaps.
I'm not an English major either, I just edited a newsletter for a while.
I definitely see what you're saying, Ellen, as far as it becoming a summary. I think the issue is that, and we talked about this at the last meeting, there were some comments that were in direct opposition to other ones. And so if you have comments that are all the way on one side and the other ones, I think that's where she ran into that. I mean, it's pretty visible to me that there were certain sections where if she had left out that comment that was completely against it, or that was in opposition to the other comments, then that would have been a problem as well. So I think I appreciate what she did. I definitely, and part of the reason that I had included, I don't know if anybody realized in the correspondence last time, but there was a decision out of Wayland that spoke, Wayland? Yes, that spoke directly to having the board, or having the chair of the board sort of be involved in that process, and how they actually got in trouble for that. So I just wanted to make sure that it was clear that there was a reason that Dolores was the one who handled that information, because I did not want to put our board in a legal position. But yes, I think we certainly could go through and wordsmith it. If that's what we want to do, I think ultimately this is what gets released for Denise. And so I think if Denise is fine with the way the commentary is and it's not completely concise, that I would defer to, not defer to, I would also want Denise's comment on that as well. Denise.
So I don't know that that's fair entirely, because it really should be the board's review, and if the board is not happy with the review. I said my piece last week, I don't need to reiterate anything that I said.
Okay.
I would agree, I think it's a much better review, and I appreciate that it is a much better review. But I think it's something that the board needs to be comfortable with, not me, quite frankly.
think you're talking about the fact that it's somewhat disjointed. I defer to leaving it this way. It's sort of a verbatim compilation of sentences that individuals wrote.
Yep.
Alternatively, if you wanna take the time, that's fine to make it more smooth flowing. I could go either way.
Yeah.
The alternative is we say something like, these comments are verbatim from individual members, therefore it's not coherent in a perfect manner. But I defer to how this board wants to vote on that.
Yeah. I do think there's something to be said for, as a record, having the words of the, because we are bound by open meeting law, and because we have to do it in this way, and because we have to submit things, and it all kind of gets put together, that it's okay that it's disjointed in that way, because if it was edited down a little bit more, I think it would kind of come across that we had discussions and whatnot, and really not been able to speak our own piece, and so I think I'm fine.
So what do you wanna do, Madam Chair?
I will take a motion if we wanna move forward with it, if
I kinda
that's what we,
like Ingeborg's idea of maybe just
but could we
putting a
put a
few words
sentence
on
on, yeah,
putting a few words on it that say this is a compilation of comments from members of the board.
can she put that in the, could Dolores add a sentence in the overall summary?
Yeah, I
It
can
says
type
this
it
is
right
a-
here if you
yeah,
say what you wanna put in there.
The summary comments below are a compilation from all of the board members' written comments.
From many of you.
Right, from many of the board members' written comments.
Because I didn't answer some, and obviously,
Hector didn't
Hector
answer.
wasn't
Well,
here.
Hector's not on the list, so, but
oh,
still,
I see,
but yes.
yes,
yes.
right. So, you could put it, her overall evaluation was 4.7 out of a possible 5, congratulations Denise. And then you could put in that the following comments were submitted by individual members and are
Compiled,
compiled, right? You can,
or how,
I'm not gonna wordsmith the sentence, I'll just.
Well, I don't
He
wanna,
has to-
I don't wanna
she
write
can't
my own
write it.
sentence,
Yeah,
so.
Okay, so let's do it. So the following comments are
a compilation of the
individual board
individual
members.
board members' comments.
All right,
Can we land on that?
and land on that.
That's great.
Delightful. Alrighty. So
Now I will move
It will-
to approve the town administrator
Oh, yeah.
performance evaluation.
yes,
So I'm just gonna say, I still oppose this, I think, this process was poorly done. If we're gonna have a specific conversation, we should have it in an executive session, I don't know why we didn't, it's personnel, it's one of the exceptions to open meeting law. I think the best way to, because I'll just go back to what we did last year, and maybe, Denise has heard others, but we met individually with the town administrator. She had she could hear from us verbally our evaluations. Then the idea was putting a summary together that was a summary, it was not a compilation of quotes, because not everybody writes very much. Some people don't write anything, and so it's not balanced. Some people feel they can express themselves in words better, others do it in numbers. And so the idea of to me, a public document is to be summary, the general sense of the board is this. And I feel, and that's okay, if you leave out a few sentences, it's okay, because that's generally how the board felt. And then you vote on that to make sure that that reflects generally how everybody feels. And I feel like doing individual quotes is just, it's not fair to Denise, and it shouldn't be a public document, every quote that everybody wrote. I mean, that's not the point of each individual evaluation, they're not open, it's personnel matters, it's not open meeting law, The public doesn't get to see what we each wrote. So I'm disappointed in the process, and I hope we learn better next year. That's
Oh, why was it changed? I just assumed that this was the way you guys did it.
No,
Okay,
it
we're in
was very
ozone
different
land,
last
so
Yeah.
comment taken, I guess, I don't know what happened, but we'll just.
So, I mean, I would much prefer that Courtney, try to work some summary out of these comments. I don't feel like this is fair to Denise, and I don't think it's the right thing to submit as a public document. I mean, I realized it's out here now, but it's not doing as well.
I tend to agree in some regard with Ellen's comments. I don't feel as though every word of the process should be public. And I think it is very difficult to select, in order to try and fairly represent things that were put in individual review, evaluations. I think it's, Dolores was in a tough position in order to try and represent everything that was put in front of her. And so I would like to perhaps see a discussion or a review of the process for the next time. So I would propose that we have worked on this a lot. It's imperfect, just like we are, and that we're recognizing that publicly in a lot of ways. And if we can comfortably move forward, that we review our process for next time and come up with something better that can because I think part of what becomes difficult is it may not be easy to, I'll make an I statement. It may not be easy for me to give constructive criticism. I'm pretty careful about how I choose my words to a fault a lot of the time, but I might not say everything that I think. I mean, I'll certainly say something different in a room privately with Denise than I will on paper, but I don't know where the paper's gonna go, because that's how I behave. I just don't put it on paper if it's gonna leave my hands. So I think it would be appropriate to look for another way to handle this so that we can give all the feedback we'd like to in a way that is healthy for the system and for the individuals involved. So, Madam Chair, I move to approve the town administrator performance evaluation for the period of September 1st, 2021 to August 31st, 2022 as amended.
Second.
All in favor? Yep.
Can there be discussion?
Yeah, sure.
What are you amending?
I think with that sentence.
Just that sentence.
That one
Okay.
sentence.
Just that.
I just didn't know because you
Yeah,
talked
you're
about
right.
further amendments, so I didn't know if you were furthering to.
Just the amendment that you
Okay.
have in hand.
So your amendment is the following comments are a compilation of individual board members' comments.
Yes.
That's great.
It's not a great sentence, but
It's okay.
at this
The
point,
rest
it's
of them are.
okay.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. All
Aye.
opposed? Okay, and Mr. just votes nay. Okay. We should move on to the town administrator's goals. All right, whoever wants to kick it off. There's a long list and definitely we're not doing all 14. And I have a couple of questions actually, Courtney. I just wanted to bring up about one of yours, which was one of mine.
Shoot.
As I was thinking about it, while I do think that anything that's done in Lower Village as a whole, we should be thinking about mixed use development. Any zoning changes really go through the planning board.
Yeah, I know.
So she's,
No,
I don't know that it should be on her. That was my only thing. I was like, oh, maybe we should not have put that on there, but
I think I wanted to put it on there. I mean, there's other things that we've had as goals that really we don't
that aren't,
do.
yeah,
So it's,
okay,
maybe it's a way of focusing whatever energy we can bring to bear
okay.
toward that.
All right, who wants to kick it off? Hector, did you have any
Um,
additional goals?
Yeah, well, not additional, but I had questions about like number 2, to establish a new town hall committee. Is that the town administrator's responsibility or the board's?
The town hall committee was, the town hall restoration committee was originally convened by the select board, I think.
Right, so,
Right.
so the question, is it a town administrator goal or is it a select board goal?
Oh, I see.
From what I read of the charter, it didn't seem like it would be the town administrator's responsibility to establish the committee. It would be up to us based on her recommendations. So I'm not sure that it would be a proper goal to have on her, set for her.
I think the second part of it is really more her goal. I hear what you're saying, absolutely, and I think that 2 is, I think the way that I look at a lot of these goals are ones that they're for Denise, but they sort of are hand in hand with things that we're doing too. Like she's not gonna be able to move forward with the town hall improvement plan until we've done the setting the
Right.
committee up, you know what I mean? So, but yes, that probably should not get listed on her actual goal.
And then, number 11, ensure a functional working relationship between the EDIC and the planning board.
Which is now irrelevant, given what we've got tonight, I would take mine off, cause that's,
Okay,
that was written before we were in the midst of the EDIC
so we should
discussion.
definitely remove number 11.
I would remove, as someone who, unless someone else wants it, I would remove it, it's not my priority anymore.
And then on number 13, work with planning board to ensure progress on revised master plan. Isn't there someone on the board that's a liaison with the planning board?
No, we
to do
don't
that?
have liaisons.
What happened to liaisons?
I don't know, the previous board got rid of them.
Oh, wow.
They weren't working.
They weren't working, that was a long conversation. Yeah, they just were not working the way that they needed to. I just think the liaisons worked best. The liaisons would not work now with the town administrator that we currently have, who is as transparent as, and works. I think it was needed in a certain time, I don't think it's needed in this time. Certainly any board member can revisit that in the future, but I do feel like Denise is sort of the default liaison for everything now, so.
Well, and I'd certainly still wanna make sure that all the agencies feel freedom to come to any one of us and discuss any issues that they think the board should be aware of. But at the same time, I'm looking at, should it be the town administrator's responsibility to ensure progress? I would also say that I would encourage us to change the wording from master plan to comprehensive plan. But again, should it be her responsibility for an elected board, how well it does its job?
Which one are you talking about?
13.
Master plan.
Do we have
Oh,
a comprehensive plan?
it falls under the purview of the
We're
planning
gonna
board.
change the name, we're talking about changing the name,
Oh,
He's talking about changing it from the,
okay.
and it's time to review that.
for sure,
Well, a lot of them are being reviewed right now.
yeah.
So I would, if I can respond, the reason I put it on there is that master plan is, it does go through the planning board, but it impacts virtually every committee and every board.
Right.
So that's why I thought it was particularly something that Denise can keep, because we're already behind. So to try to help us move that along, it's not, and maybe the wording about working with the planning board maybe is not the right language on that, I'm not sure, but sort of like the previous one about the charter review committee, it's like, what's the best way for you to help us make sure that the master plan keeps moving? Yes, we don't tell the planning board what to do, but the whole town is waiting on, and in fact, money is resting on the master plan getting done, so it's
If
pretty.
13 is supposed to be similar to 12, then yeah, I would say if we could reword it so that
Yeah.
it matches that. I can understand Denise keeping us apprised
You
of what's
have
going on.
language that you'd be more comfortable with that concept?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends what the ultimate goal is. If the goal is to keep the board apprised, then we can change it to that. If it's to work with them to keep it moving along, I guess it really depends
Well, cause the difference for me between the master plan and the charter review, the charter review is a very specific document, and that's pretty straightforward. I mean, we're involved or we're not, but the master plan, there's so many parts to it, and I feel like the coordinating, it's a lot to ask just the planning department to make sure it happens, and I feel like you can help the clarity for like how they should be interfacing with the different entities that have to be providing information. I actually don't think, I haven't been that involved in the master plan process in the past, and
I think what they've been working on, as far as Lori goes, because it hasn't been updated since 2010.
Yeah.
I think now you're looking at like the elephant that you have to eat, and so I think they are really trying to work on it in smaller sections, and so like every year they have a different section. So the idea is that in the next a couple of years, and the idea is that it's a living document, so it is something that's kind of constantly changing, because it's a huge document, and it just hasn't been.
In a number of meetings with, I was part of the Stow Jedi who met with the town planner and the assistant town planner, where we were talking about how do we get the comprehensive plan even started.
Right.
And the discussion was all about what viewpoints would be included in that comprehensive plan. But my only issue with this is that putting the responsibility on the town administrator to ensure progress just seems like if we could reword that to facilitate, to make sure that they have what they need and that we have the information we need, or we understand how we can help them along, as long as she's not responsible that if they don't make progress.
So I just wrote, assist the planning board in facilitating the comprehensive plan process. Does that sound more like what you're thinking?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I will strike the original one and we'll put that in its place.
Yeah.
Are you taking number 10 out? I couldn't hear you.
That's all I had.
Did you?
Yeah, so I just wanna, so on number 10, I think, I kind of
Mike.
feel like it's another way that, of looking at Lower Village, and, so I know it's not our purview. I think like encouraging water development, which isn't exactly, I don't know if it's exactly our purview either.
Well, the water development,
That folds into the Lower Village umbrella, I think, right? Like,
well, it's critical to it, but it's
Right.
also a town-wide issue. We should understand what our
Right.
water issues are.
right, and I think that's a separate, yes,
Right.
yes.
That could go in, well, I don't know what you're getting at, I'll let you finish. What are you saying?
Thank you.
I don't know, I may have just, written down too many ideas. I'm willing to strike it.
Well, I just, I guess, along with Hector, I don't want Denise to be telling other departments what to do, but just to assist them with resources. So, and that's part of, so maybe the goal is, cause there's a lot of these things where different departments have a lot of responsibilities this year. And as part of being, the chief officer of the town, it's your responsibility to make sure the departments are staffed adequately and have the resources they need to do their work. Is that one of your goals? Is that our goal? Just more blanket goal that says continue to support the municipal departments to function in the manner that, I don't know what parameter we put in there, but I think that would eliminate a lot of these, and it is part of your position, is to make sure the departments are working productively together and complementing one another and not each running down their own path. And a lot of the stuff that conservation, that planning, Board of Health, we're all sort of focusing on the same overriding public safety and health. And so I think if we, just do something like that, that kills a lot of these as individual action items and it just underscores what you do anyway. So I would suggest that route.
Okay. I do think I've struggled with the goals only because I know there are so many different facets to Denise's job, and so it's like we need her to do that. And then I've always thought of these as being like 2 or 3 kind of extra projects that are like
So,
bigger things.
Absolutely, I think there are some here that are bigger things. But they also fall within, well, except for mine, of course, which is totally appropriate. Task force, that
That
really,
was on my list last year. I mean, when the
then yours too.
thank you.
So, those are the kinds of extra things that I think we need to prioritize how this town responds to drought, to flooding, to water supply issues, and that's, and then the Green Advisory Committee, I think those are extra things that get delegated to appropriate people in the town that work and report. I don't know, maybe to Denise, to someone else. I don't know the answer in terms of the reporting structure, but
Yeah.
I think a lot of these other things, the shuttle to the commuter rail, that's just such a flip a coin, you know, we've done it.
Yep.
I think it's totally important, but no one used it last time. It was like dead in the water.
I think there's funding coming. Like that's, I mean, that would be my
So
question.
then the
So like
thing
if we
is,
could figure out like
What
sort of
grant
where that's
opportunities can
standard.
different departments, like planning board could work this?
right.
So that would be part of the overall mandate, is that you encourage the boards to, or departments to
Whatever. Yeah.
review what funding sources are available to them, and that you would
Yeah.
support, like, you know, the grant applications that we've made and that we've been very successful with the dam and golf course, what's it called?
So acres.
So,
That was good.
yeah, you knew what I meant.
Yeah.
Do we need to put Stow Acres? I mean, it's not done yet, right? Or do you feel like we need to?
That would
That
be
on the
the
list.
support of the
I mean,
whole
it's-
team.
It's happening anyways.
Yeah.
We had this conversation last year. I'm gonna be involved with it regardless.
No, I know,
If you
but-
wanna put it on there, we can.
Well, but I mean, in terms of the most important things going on in town, yeah, that would be up there. I mean, I think, you know, maybe it's a gimme, you know.
Yeah,
it's
it
an
was the
easy
number one,
but-
it was the number one goal last year.
Yeah, I just
Yeah,
think.
and that's in, now you're in grant management and project management, which I'm assuming, Denise, you're delegating that you're not responsible for it. So once again, that falls into the category of make sure people do their jobs.
No, but that's, Stow Acres is much more than just any one of those things.
It's both of those things, that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's
We
grant
needed
management.
Denise, it wouldn't have happened without Denise, like.
I'm not arguing that, I'm just
So-
saying this year, it is in a different category. The money is in, the project is moving forward.
Right.
We're in the process of potentially getting consultants. We've got the state out there walking it, so it's now not, it's going into a different category that I don't believe is Denise's responsibility. I mean, she has to make sure
I
it's
see what
done.
you're saying.
I just don't wanna tell the departments what to do.
It's almost like she sort of has
I'm hoping she's
is shepherding it into
Right, it's in the shepherd
shepherd.
category now is, I mean, but I don't know, Denise, if you are more hands-on, or do you delegate these things to people?
So it definitely depends. I mean, I am much more hands-on than my predecessor. Stow Acres, I am heavily involved and
Okay,
will be.
so then maybe Stow
Um,
Acres stays on here. I don't know how you work with these kinds of things, so.
So I feel my role is to assist the departments, I support them, but then fill in where needed. And if they need my resources, if they need me to help, I've said to them before, if you need me in a meeting, ask me to be in a meeting. If you need me to be the heavyweight and say the town administrator, use me however you need to. But certain things like this, we have, so much time and money invested that I am part of the core project team that continues to meet monthly, in addition to the MVP stuff. And I don't know that it wouldn't happen if I wasn't there, but I feel like that's how I can make sure that the project, we're meeting all of our deadlines, we're meeting the goals, I can report back to you what's going on,
Okay, so then
so.
put that as one of your goals, and then the overriding one for others.
Let me see.
Bless you.
Bless you.
Would that include 9 and 10? Because I'm really not sure what the goals are for 9 and 10.
So honestly, I put some ideas out there just because I think in the past, we actually I thought we had kind of a different process. We had, and maybe I misremember it, that we had sort of a brainstorming session, which I think we're doing now.
Yes, yeah.
But that we just talked about ideas about what was important to us to see moving forward.
Yeah.
And so I just threw some things out that I think are important, not this coming year, but as part of what's important in the town. So the shuttle to the T isn't very important. I think the usership are down. Every time I'm at the train crossing, I see empty trains going, so. But I think that in terms of, being a town next to an MBTA town, getting an overlay district required for a certain density of housing, at some point there's gonna need to be a shuttle to take people from wherever the housing is to the train station. And so it's not really off the list, it's not something that we need to micro-focus on today. So.
Though we still have that grant money, right,
It's still earmarked.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so,
it's just, can I just ask on that specific one, cause there was a point where no one was using, I don't know actually what the use of the commuter rail is right now, but who would own that, like that grant money, cause that's one of those things, like what department would we?
So it would,
Planning, right?
it was primarily planning,
Oh, that's right, 'cause
but then it was gonna be in collaboration with the Council on Aging because it was gonna be utilizing their van. So we still have discussions about it, but there has not seemed to be, the ridership that's picked up, so, we haven't seen that there's a need for it at this moment. In addition, some of the requirements that we found, regarding the van, we cannot comply with, like keeping it in a sheltered location, for the winter. We are working on that with the Friends of the Council on Aging, but at this point, we can't, it's too big to, go into the garage at the old fire station. The doors are too low for the van. So it's still being discussed, but there hasn't been a lot of momentum behind it recently, just because I think there's still so many people working from home.
right.
And what was the mixed use zoning in Lower Village about?
So I guess again, in the context of the recent law that was passed and the updated guidelines for the dense zoning, and I know, again, this is really a planning board thing, but I feel like maybe this isn't at all the right forum, maybe I should show up at some community forum for the comprehensive plan and say, I think Shaw's should be 2 levels or more.
I agree with you there.
I just wanted to throw it into conversation about things that we think are important for the town, so
Yeah.
really off the cuff, sorry to muddy the waters, but.
No, I think that's.
I think the idea behind this document was sort of throwing everything at the wall and then letting everybody have their own sort of say, so certainly we're not giving her these 14 goals
Oh, good.
as they are, but I think the idea is, or you are gonna
No,
give her all
no,
14.
I had notes to say that really the goals that I think are the most important that I'd like to really see go on the list are 1, 2, and 7, and that's.
Yep.
And maybe a couple others, but those are my top 3.
I would say 1, 2, 3. 3 for sure. And And 7 feels like that's something that the traffic safety committee
Yeah.
really seems to be dialing in on. Good job, Chief Solisi. So yeah, I mean, I think but I do think that's really important. I'll tell you that as an aside, Packard Road had an awful lot of traffic on it today, and it's those side roads that, because of the 117. So yes, as we get more traffic, as we get more people, as all the things happen, I think that that's just important. The truck restrictions will be something that I really feel like that's also a planning board thing though. They had looked into. All right, I'm done talking.
I also think 6 is important.
See, I don't see that the Green Advisory Committee is working and they can bring their own proposals. I don't know that town administrator needs to work on it. I'll agree with that.
That's where I was sketchy, I wasn't sure
Yeah.
how involved Denise.
I think, and we asked, to be fair, like, one of the when I said that was my thing, that was one of the things that I had asked of the Green Advisory Committee, sort of when we were throwing things out it was the plastic bag ban, so.
Oh, yeah, I
As something that was
It
a
was
suggestion for them to
listed on
do.
last year's, right,
Yeah.
so that's why I
Yeah,
I was interested to see that.
Yeah.
And then the gas link, there's those 10 towns in the city, state that are testing gas bans. Acton is one of them.
Mm.
And so I don't know enough about it, but we can certainly take that off. It may not, because they are getting grants for that work, so it may not even be an option for us right now.
Right.
So I'm happy to take that one off and agree that Green Advisory is doing a great job.
And I meet with them monthly, and that was something they were gonna bring back to their committee to see if it was something they wanted to, cause they've been focused on the new stretch code and some of the new requirements, they were gonna see if it was something they wanted to, focus their energy on, or if they wanted to focus on.
Maybe they know even more about the grant program than I do, and might just say, well, we're thinking about it for the next round,
Right.
right?
Yeah, so the grant program this year, we have a hybrid, money going towards the hybrid police vehicle, so that's what they applied for this past year. But they were gonna bring it back, cause they are working on the climate action plan, and that's been their focus.
Okay, that sounds great. All right, so we've gotten rid of 6, 9.
11.
11,
Did we get rid of 9? We were taking 9 off the
Yeah.
table?
And 11.
I think 8 would be a grant.
Yeah, who would pay for that?
I think it would have to be like,
I think it's a great idea.
I think it's a great idea, but
Again, it was just, I wanted to see
I
if it
think
would stick
it's-
to the wall.
I think it's a, there would need to be some kind of a grant, and I don't even know.
I'm sorry, what number are you on?
8?
Actually, just put this on here, cause I would like a poll to see if other people thought that
Yeah.
that having the
Oh, yeah,
paper go
it's
around
very
would be-
valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, when something comes in the mailbox, you have to look at it.
No, you're not.
No,
Just
not
for
really.
3 seconds, you have to look at it.
Tell you what, I don't
Before it
look
goes
at
in the
it.
trash.
No, but I actually enjoy.
why I like the recycling.
reading
Oh, I do
paper.
too.
Yes, I say,
That's why I
oh.
like the recycling bin right next to the mailbox.
Yeah,
It goes
exactly,
Yeah.
straight
boom,
in.
boom, boom.
Certainly,
Well,
that is a question that's interesting, may not be part of your goals. I said though, well, unless it's something that we wanna ask Denise to research grant funding, or if any other communities have something, but I think that the independent does do at least 4 free mailings to everyone in town once, like, I think they do that quarterly, for bus schedules and for,
No, those are online now, they don't have.
well, right, but
They do
the
the
idea
town
was to
meeting.
do it for bus schedules,
Exactly,
but
yes.
town meeting. So I do think that some people, that, I mean, they do get it, but,
Well, I guess the real question is, are they sustainable by themselves?
Right.
And so to
Right.
I think it's a valuable service to the community, and maybe this isn't Denise's responsibility, but
right. Okay, so we like,
Yeah.
even if it's,
In some form.
right, there's a lot going on in there, but I think it's,
I mean, it seems, it's a little bit of the lower village, along with Courtney's other one around mixed use, it's like,
Right,
it's again, it's that sort of big topic of
Right.
lower village, there's the
I-
big topic of Bose, there's the big topic of.
Stow Acres, right, there's the big topic of, I mean, there's another development at Athens Lane, right, like, there's that one too, so
But
it
those are just
is,
residential, right, I mean,
right, but it's high density, right? Like, I mean, it's not high density, but it's not a five,
but to
it's
me,
not
that's
a
more
five.
really a planning board.
Right.
There's the ones that
right.
have to do, that overlap with
Right.
business and
Right.
there's, and water and those other issues, those are more.
Well, they're gonna be sinking a couple wells, or at least one well at Athens Lane, I
Right.
don't know how many.
Two.
But I do, yeah. Okay,
So can we straw poll agree on a list that we can then revise before they're finalized? Maybe go at this that way so that.
that sounds great. Do we wanna just do a straw poll vote on each one?
Yeah,
Okay, so 1,
yes,
Yes,
alright, so we're gonna stay with 1, 2,
yes,
yes.
yes, amended.
Yes.
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 3,
Yes.
yes. It doesn't have to be, yeah,
Sure,
okay.
yeah.
4, I think,
It's already happening.
4 you're already doing.
4 I think she's already doing. 5,
So is that a yes or a no?
Is it on or not? See, I would say it's still on in the
Yeah, I
same
guess
way.
so.
yeah, so I think it should stay, yep.
Okay.
We can have a category of ongoing
I know,
projects.
seriously, like,
So I guess the easy way to do it is your performance review's gonna be, 4.98 out of 5. We can be
right,
easy on there.
seriously. What did you do with Stow Acres? Do we think that the task force, this seems to me to be like a joint
Board of Health.
Board of Health.
Oh, yeah, that's what I mean.
Concom.
That's the way I
select,
presented it.
like, yeah, so I think, like, is this, we
I would
would
put that
want to
on
put a
our
committee, I think that would have to go on our list, right, is to
Yes.
form a committee.
Oh,
Which
well,
we can
I know.
do.
Well, Denise, you suggested you could start a task force. I'll do whatever, I think it's important, whatever forum process, I don't
Do
care.
you, yeah, right, so it's whether or not it's a task force or it's a committee. Which
I don't know what the
committee,
difference
committee would
is.
fall under us, a
Oh,
task
no.
force could be,
So a task force wouldn't meet the open meeting law requirements, cause it's me forming and it's not an elected or an appointed board forming a committee. So one is more official, one is less official, has more flexibility to,
Oh, so your
Do some
predecessor
things.
had
Called working groups.
working groups.
working groups.
Not a fan. Just not.
But I do think that a task force that is working on drought and flooding could make sense only because, so there's 2 different ways to look at it. One is like, this is emergency response, this is like quick, this group can kind of get together and talk about things in a shorter term, or a shorter period of time. But then a committee, I would see as what's our 2, 4, 6 year goals? Like what are we have in place that way, so.
Because I think a longer term is good.
Right, but I also think that, well, I guess short term really is our,
Short term
is
was
our,
managed.
is our first responders.
Right,
Really,
exactly,
I
and the
mean,
Board of Health.
and the Board of Health, so,
Right.
yeah. Okay, so.
So that goes off, but then it goes on our
It would go
goals.
on our goals.
Yeah.
Green advisory would,
That comes off and.
you already took that off.
comes off. 7 is off, cause that's really
Yep.
more complete streets, or not complete streets, traffic safety. 8, great idea, we're gonna
Off.
find a home for it.
Yep.
Just not on Denise's list. 9.
Off.
9 is less of a, but is that something that you could just,
Well, she
Maybe
said-
give us a-
And he said it's been floating around still, it still comes up occasionally, so.
yeah, I'm
We
just
still
wondering if
talk
you could
about it.
just, yeah, if the next time it comes up, if you could just give us an update on it, just to know, I guess, I don't know. It doesn't have to be a goal, I'm just asking.
Yes, there's nothing going on with it.
If anything happens to come up, can you let us know?
Yes.
Mixed use zoning will take off. 11, we're gonna talk about in a minute, so that can come off. Charter review, yes, and actually, we will be having them next meeting, or some updates next meeting. Master plan,
We came up with some
So that was
different
So there was a
changed to-
rewording.
Assist the planning board in facilitating the comprehensive plan process.
And then affordable housing. Ellen, do you wanna?
I guess it's, you know, it's an unpopular topic that people would rather not talk about, and I think, with the Red Acre project moving forward and with, Malcolm's presentation last time about the was that last time, whatever it was, about the MBTA
And also the
thing.
golf course will have some affordable housing.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So I think, I feel like it needs to rise up a little bit, and I was sort of embarrassed I didn't bring it up on my first list when I first was thinking about it, but. And again, I don't know I mean, SMOT exists, the housing authority exists.
Yeah.
Again, it's sort of a multi,
It's a multi-year, all the
Right.
things
Right.
kind of goal. All right, how many are you down to? What do we not have
1,
this
2,
list?
3, 4, 5, 6, and then you've added 2 more since we've been talking. So,
well, we had 9 last year, so.
yes.
Well, you went down from 14 to 8. Can I just ask, do we want to vote on them now, or do you wanna see?
So is that's a yes for the number 14?
Yeah, I don't know,
I would say no.
you say no.
I would say no, but I think only because I think it is at the forefront of a few of the projects that are happening. But I also do think it is obviously important for us to make sure that, I think that also sort of falls in planning too, in the like keeping in mind the need for affordable housing in any kind of project.
I mean, but what would Denise do?
That was my
Right.
other
In
question.
addition to
Yeah, that's
SMOT
Yeah.
and the housing authority and
Right,
planning
right,
incentives.
right. Cause I do think that planning has, I mean, I don't know. I don't know that I would want it as a separate goal, but I definitely think that it would, cause I think you're right, I don't know how she would
Do anything
do anything
beyond.
herself, yourself, yes.
Yes, and I just to go back to what we've talked about, it doesn't mean I'm not gonna help in the process. It doesn't mean if SMOT has a question, I'm not gonna answer it or not gonna work with them.
Right.
You know, we've talked about even the traffic, I work closely with the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee, so it's not like I'm not gonna do these things because
Right.
you don't have them on my goal list.
Right.
So
Okay.
whether it's here or not, I'm still gonna do it, it's part of my job,
Okay.
to do everything that we've discussed tonight.
To that end, I would like to revisit something that Ingeborg said, which is to perhaps give you a goal of which is also something that you already do. But just to maybe I mean, as long as we're putting things on this list that are in some ways obvious, to support and to support the staff and committees and boards in their efforts to make various things go forward. I mean, you worded it better than I did.
So I have continued to provide necessary resources and staffing for departments for efficient operations. Was sort of what I took from what you had suggested. I can change that or add that, but that's what
That's great.
No,
I
I
like
do
that.
like the efficient operations too, cause there's a fiscal
Yeah.
component to that as well, which I
And
think is
efficient,
smart.
they're not all
Efficient.
running, doing the same thing.
And then we've added continue moving the Stow Acres project forward.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
right. Which you're doing
That's a-
anyway.
That's a given. Alright,
So back to number 14.
right,
Take it off.
Pick it up.
Take it out.
Take it off, okay.
alright, so, do we want to vote on this? Can you share your screen? Can we see it all?
Let me just,
Can we do it next meeting?
next time we'll
Yeah.
sit
Yep,
and make
yep.
sure they look,
Can you send it out for
Together?
the next meeting and then we'll just approve it or whatever?
And then if
if anybody
Because
has
I
any
think number one,
edits.
people wanted to make some changes, number two, people wanted to make some changes,
So can we send any changes to you? Can you, is it possible for you to send a draft of it out, just, nope, okay?
I will send, it'll be part of our
It'll
packet.
be part of the packet and
Come
we'll
prepared
make
with
the
your
changes.
amendments.
All right.
Perfect.
It's only been 3 years, I'll get that open meeting law. Okay, great, so we're gonna just not vote on that tonight, and we're gonna move on to the EDIC charge. Okay, I have a report on this. So what you have in front of you,
Thank you.
thank you, is the mission statement that the EDIC kind of put forward. They wrote this, they met, then Lori and Tom and I sat and we had a meeting. Lori and I had a couple of questions about some of the wording of this. But we agreed, the three of us, to take this statement that the EDIC did, bring it back to our respective boards, have discussions, the three of us will then meet, come to a consensus, and then we'll bring the final one to each of the boards for a vote, okay? I think it's the most equitable way to do it. I think that it is, getting the parties involved who have been a part of the process, who have been a part of the committee for a while, but also just making sure that everyone is on the same page with what should be happening. So I will entertain questions or comments first, from anyone. And then I can tell you what my issue is.
Oh, okay, well, I had one question, but given that
Yeah.
they wrote it,
Yeah.
maybe it goes away. I was just, the sentence that says, to achieve these goals, the EDIC shall develop baseline business information and studies on Stow's evolving economic conditions. I wanted to make sure they wanted to do that, but I guess they do.
They did.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. That was my only thing, but I'd love to hear your thing.
I'm more of a bullet statement kind of person, so I have to kind of translate that better from you to understand. And the things that I'm thinking about is representing how do we encourage business in the town? Representing businesses that are trying to come into the town, what do they need to do, and helping them through all the licensing and I don't know what other procedures are needed in order to start working in town. And telling this board what obstacles are there to further development of businesses. I kind of feel like some of those are covered, but I'm not sure.
I feel like that's all in here.
I think so.
Identify needs and action steps.
Yeah.
To further business opportunities.
Well, I was looking at the last one, the last part of the last sentence, as well as provide liaison and or advocacy between the town of Stow. Is that to help businesses?
I think the language, the idea behind it is that if you're a new business and you're coming into town and you're not sure, I mean, if your step is not to go right to town hall, if you want to talk, they're not making any decisions,
Right.
but it's so that they can help to point people in the right direction, so that they know who they need to talk to about X, Y, and Z, or what obstacles they might face, and so I think that's part of the idea, and part of it is, it's trying to get baseline business information. I mean, even if that's like a Google Doc that's literally like this, who owns this property, or what business is here, what do they provide, blah, 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 blah. Like, I don't know that we have, even if it's something, I know that we talked about the map, the cartoon map, but there's no there's no centralized directory of it. So like if that would be something that could be helpful, at least for them internally. Even if it's not external, for them to know who.
So this would be our version of a chamber of commerce in essence. I don't know, because I believe that in a chamber of commerce,
businesses need to
Pay?
pay to get into them? And I could be
Members?
speaking out of the
Well, I
side
was
of my
thinking
mouth.
more of the sense of advocacy for the businesses, advocacy for business within the town, and
Mhm.
also representing,
Yeah,
presenting to the town
yeah,
ideas for improving business environments.
yeah.
That's something that a Chamber of Commerce does, but
Yeah.
also it sounds like the EDIC would be doing.
Uh-huh.
And we have two chambers,
There's
work
the
in Stowe.
regional,
There's the one that's Assabet River, and then there's the Middlesex West or something.
Right.
I can't remember what the other one's
But we've got both of them?
Really?
I don't know if they're both active. Assabet's still active, but the other one,
Middlesex West is, I know, cause
Restart.
we're in it, it's
and
active,
the airfield
but-
used to be in it too,
Yeah.
right? So
yeah.
I've never heard from anyone from there.
from the,
Um,
that's why I have
Assabet
a
we
feeling,
hear from-
Nancy used to be really active in it. I have a feeling
Yeah.
maybe it's, well, you're saying the.
No, it's still very active, but
Oh.
I'm in a different, I'm in Acton, so,
But the middle, you're in the
Middlesex
Middlesex West
West,
one? Oh, okay.
yeah.
We should be, since we're the last town
Yeah.
in Middlesex West, but
Yeah.
I've never heard from them or gotten anything from them.
And Hudson's been more active with events and stuff.
yeah.
But it's a good question. It's like, how is it different from a
Right.
chamber? I mean, except for that they don't have to pay dues to be part of it, but.
What was your issue? I mean, given that they wrote it, I'm.
So Laura, when we were talking, the issue that really came up was the definitions and it was, Tom wanted to make sure everything was defined out, like if you're referring to whatever, and so when he said EDIC members, that's not our appointment process. However, this is a very short sentence for the conversation that we were having, which is basically, the appointment process is someone applies, Denise goes through, brings the appointment to us, brings multiple appointments to us, and then we vote, like we've been doing with all of the appointments. I think the question was,
Can I clarify that?
sorry, yes,
Sorry. So I don't bring multiple appointments unless
No,
I'm
no.
recommending.
multiple
people.
appointments, right.
I make a recommendation for one
From-
person to fill the vacancy
Got
that's
it.
open.
But we would see all the other applicants, right? Why not?
That's the next item.
That's,
Oh, sorry, okay, I'll shut up then.
so, it's, okay, so the idea was, sorry, with input from seated and current EDIC members, it would be Denise brings forward an appointment. If the EDIC members or whoever, any kind of an appointment wants to be present in a meeting and ask questions of the person who is being appointed, which we've done multiple times with multiple different appointments. If somebody's gonna serve on a committee with you, you have questions of them, that's great. So that was the whole kind of, that is a very short sentence that has a lot of stuff in it that needs to definitely be amended, cause it's not all true. That was my biggest thing from it. I'm not sure when planning board gets this, if
I
they,
think they're discussing it this evening.
yeah,
It's on
so
their agenda.
will, if there are any, you're not, or do you want me to take notes on this?
I'll just take them from the minutes.
Okay, and then just, okay.
But I don't know that anyone's made any.
No, I mean, when we get to that
Okay.
point, if we get to that point. Okay, so any comments? Ellen?
So I mean, and this actually, the reason I put it, the way I put it on the goals, which it just shouldn't be there anymore, but is, I think we use the term, business-friendly community. Or some people use that term, and I'm not sure what it means to different people, sort of like a rural character, and I think I'd love to see the EDIC help us. And this is where the lines get blurry with the master planning process and everything else, but what, and I think somebody said, what could we do to make it a more business-friendly community, so if part of their liaison work with us would be to say, what we're hearing is, I mean, and I hate to use any example, but, you know, let's just say the sign bylaw, we really should update the sign bylaw language, so, okay, that's a good feedback, you know, that kind of thing, that I feel like that's a value that a chamber wouldn't be doing in the same sort of way, that the EDIC, I feel like, because the term economic development, they're trying to help us improve it, so, you know, things that we as the board members might not see. So that's, but I don't know how to fit that into that discussion, I just, is it in there? Is that sort of idea of, what does economic development, what's, and I guess it's, you know, thinking, having a group of business people think about what are the right kinds of businesses we should be attracting. Maybe ones that don't need water, I mean, but just helping us think through, like, where should we be going to try to attract different kinds of business in town, you know, and what are the right kinds of businesses? So it's sort of in there, but.
Yeah, I think that second sentence is really kind of where they hit that,
okay.
where it's, they'll work with boards and commissions, Stow businesses and residents to better understand and balance community needs and business development within the town.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do hear what you're saying. I know,
Okay, yeah.
town litter, sorry. I was gonna say,
Is there a way, I mean, maybe not as part of the mission statement, but is there a way that they could like have a concrete deliverable? Is it not appropriate in this conversation, but I sort of feel like part of what we're hovering around is, you know, are we busy, you know, we've been, I've heard people say the town is not business friendly. And personally, having been through permitting processes in various towns, I think the permitting process is not personal. There are rules to be followed and you either are, you know, you're either fitting in the box or you're not, and you have to figure that out. So I think if someone takes the permitting process personally, then it could be very upsetting, and that's really not the goal of the person in the office interpreting the, you know, the application process. So how can we find out what really is the source of the upset, if there is one, or the comments that say that we're not friendly, and address those? So that's part, you know, I mean, I think that's in here too, but is there a way to make it more specific that there's a charge to make a report?
I like the
Periodically.
deliverables, I mean, just
Yeah.
some sort of, I mean, we write annual reports for the annual report, but to like report back to the select board once a year on.
right. And I think to that, I think that in that third sentence is where they were trying to get to a deliverable. So it's develop baseline business information and studies. And then providing liaison or advocacy between government and business interests. And so, but it's not like, so when I chaired the Lower Village Revitalization Subcommittee, like we had a deliverable of a report that had to come out at the end of it. And so, and then, so yes, I can see how a deliverable would 1,000% work here. But there was like supposed to be an end date to that particular committee, and this one is like meant to be living. So I think like having a document that is kind of a baseline of businesses, and I think that's a fair and again, when they worked on this together, I think the bigger comment that they had was that they didn't feel like they had sort of a charge, that they didn't have a deliverable that they were working towards. And I think that once they worked, and we're talking through this, it felt like there was something that they were able to work toward, like something concrete to be able to work towards. Yes.
Can I ask, I know when we started talking about this, the goal was to get some information from surrounding towns. Was that done? I mean, I know some towns, they put out how to open a business in town, their EDIC does. Some put out like a prospectus on the town to try and attract business.
Right.
Bolton does a business fair once
Yeah.
or twice a year. I mean, has any thought been given into what surrounding towns have done, and maybe we can work some of that into an actual deliverable for the committee to have?
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know that answer, and I think that's a fantastic note to maybe put so that we can, I can report that back, because I think that's fantastic.
So would that be something that we're doing, is also send you what our impressions is of this, and and there's still possible discussion about improving the statement?
So this is where I'm gonna ask Denise, can they send me individually nope, can they send it to
We're doing
you?
it right now.
This is, I'm making notes of what's being discussed.
Alright, so
Okay.
no,
Which then Megan would take back to her subgroup of the 3 chairs.
and then we'll.
Everyone would go back to their committees,
Yeah.
come back again with another draft.
Yep.
Until you, I guess, all
Land
agree
on a
on
draft, okay.
a final draft. But no,
Okay.
you cannot email things amongst each other. That is deliberation amongst the board members.
Just.
Okay,
So yes, you could send stuff to me,
okay,
but I would have to add it to the list and compile it. It can't go back to Megan to then take to,
right.
Okay.
so.
Cause I would like to see it clearly spelled out that EDIC is looking to promote businesses in Stow, represent businesses to the board, or business interests to the board, and represent the town to businesses. I'm not saying this exactly right, I'd have to write it down to
Yep.
further clarify it, but I'm thinking of at least those 3 categories of the EDIC being involved in. In a simple term, and something that I hear about living in meeting houses, you know, why can't we have a Starbucks in the drive-through? How would the EDIC
Right.
represent that?
Right.
With this mission statement?
Well, it would,
It's part of the
it's part of the advocacy, it's part of working with the boards and commissions.
Support new businesses.
Right, so develop
Identify
baseline
action
business
steps.
information, I'm not sure what.
Liaison.
There's a liaison part in the second
Right.
bit, yeah.
That's why I think it would be, again, I'm a bullets person, so I have an easier time seeing it, understanding it if I saw it in bullets. Develop baseline business information and studies. I'm not sure. So what are they going to study? How well the businesses are doing in town?
No, but I think they could do a study on, say, the longevity of businesses in the town. They could
Okay.
do I mean, there's, and honestly, I think it's written this way, cause it does, there is a deliverable there, but it gives them flexibility to sort of figure out what kind of information they're looking for, so that we're not having to constantly reinvent the wheel with
So
the
would they
mission
be the
statement.
ones to study why businesses keep closing at Lower Village?
Well, we know why businesses are closing.
Yes.
But it'd be nice to have a formal report.
Right, so I think that I think that the idea would be for them to compile that.
Okay,
We can't micromanage them.
Yeah, I think part of it too is like, the idea with this mission statement is we're not putting forth, so where we put forth goals to Denise, like the mission statement is going to live
right,
past this iteration of the board, past, you know what I mean? So
right,
it's something that needs to be both, give them an action item and something concrete, and also be like kind of open enough for them, for things to be able to, you know.
But if I may,
Yeah.
one of the things you said, Hector, is one of the problems that we ran into was the EDIC representing Stow to businesses, which there's a fine line there, they have no authority.
right,
And so, and that is, I think, from what I understand, a little bit of what happened in the past was that they were speaking a little too much to businesses as if they had authority to promise them things, and then.
Instead of being the liaison.
and that's why I
advocates,
said,
yeah.
I wasn't wording it right, but as
Yeah.
Denise mentioned, you know, is there a pamphlet that they can hand to a business who's interested in?
Yes, exactly,
Right.
right.
And I think they need to develop that.
Right.
Yep. Yep.
But
So-
also, I'd like to see them So I think the liaison part of this is that if somebody says, well, gee, I really wanna have a drive-through, the EDIC needs to be able to say to them, well, our bylaws don't allow drive-throughs. And the reason that we don't is whatever it is, maybe we can have a reason that, maybe they go to the planning board and say, why don't we allow drive-throughs? Please enumerate this so that I can go back to so-and-so and explain to them because they want a drive-through. And a lot of people are asking me why we can't have this. So that they're advocating for the town as well as for the business.
It's for the businesses, right?
Well,
It's not
and
a
also
one-way.
tell the business, here's what you would need to do if you want to change that law.
Right, and then the steps to
Right.
getting
Right.
them to get yeah, absolutely.
So I would agree, and I think the topic that Ellen brought up earlier, the sign bylaw, like to me, that's a perfect example of if we have 50 businesses in town and 30 of them are affected by the bylaw, I would envision the EDIC could have a forum of the business owners, and then they in turn could go to the planning board, because you're not gonna expect 30 business owners to go to the planning board. They could go and represent and say, this is what our membership, this is the concerns, this is what they'd like to see, and then have sort of a collaborative working process with the EDIC, again, following our bylaws, but then helping to advocate for what the
Exactly.
businesses need in town.
Exactly.
I mean, to me, that's a good, the drive-through, yes, but it might be more individualized based on the business, whereas something like the sign bylaw affects every business in town.
Right.
So I think to me, that's where I would see that they would be the most useful, is really having that advocacy, but then knowing who to go to and advocate on behalf of
Yes,
the purpose.
thank you. That's what I was trying to say.
All right, do we have any more discussion on, or any changes or at whatever?
There's just a typo there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there sure
Yes.
is. So Denise,
Yes.
if anyone else has changes, can they send them to you?
Yes.
When would you like them by?
Is this for your next agenda? Is this for your meeting? What are we compiling them for? Because
It would be for my meeting.
So then it has to be on the agenda then, as at least correspondence, what you're
Okay.
bringing forward, because it's all the collective
Okay.
thoughts of the board.
Okay.
So, do you have a timeline scheduled for
I
your next
don't,
meeting?
because they're meeting tonight and then I was gonna see when, I can't imagine that it would be. It's gonna be on Zoom. It will be before our next, I would like to try and zip this up, so I'd like to meet with them before our next meeting to try and.
So would you like to give through the end of the weekend?
Yes.
It's really your timeline.
Yes. Does
Okay.
that sound feasible to everyone on the board?
Are these definitions also going to be,
No, I think that, certainly they can be, you can give me your questions about them. I don't believe that the definitions would be included with the mission. Tom writes a lot of policy. There's like a reason that this looks like this. So I do think he wanted he wanted on paper that the advisory committee / boards do not have legislative duties.
okay,
Like he wanted to make that a couple of things clear, their committee, to be clear, wanted to make it very clear that they were not acting.
I was
in
just a little
previous
confused by the first sentence after the comma. Gathering information via personal survey, informal and formal sources of concern to that group. Wasn't quite clear what that meant.
Yeah, they're not like full sentences.
Maybe
Okay.
regarding informal and formal sources of.
Okay. Alright, so if everybody can get any changes to Denise, then Denise will get me that next week, and then I will try and get Tom and,
So when we email
Sorry, on
you,
call.
Denise, do we also need to copy the select board address?
Nope.
Okay.
alright. Any other questions, any other comments? Moving right along, select board correspondence discussion. we have been kicking the can on this one. And I think, Ellen, did you wanna talk to this?
Sure.
Okay.
So I think I don't remember, it was last year, maybe 2 years ago, we, in the past, well, before we went into COVID mode, there would be a large envelope on the table with lots of correspondence that we would read before the meeting. And I think it was largely because of COVID, maybe because we had a really efficient staff, but it all gets scanned and we get what we get now. But at one point, we agreed not to get everything because we were in particular getting a lot of repeats of the exact same very large legal correspondence that we didn't need to keep seeing. And we took a vote that we wouldn't need to see everything. But I'm concerned that I've been getting feedback from people saying that they, and it actually came up to your comment around applicants, saying I put a letter in for X, Y, or Z, and I didn't know, and it was a little embarrassing, and I didn't, I said, well, you have to ask Denise, I don't know what's happening, and I did talk to Denise, and I understand there's the awkwardness of putting everybody's application out there, because then you're sort of, there could be someone who's writing that's completely inappropriate for a board, and we don't wanna, I'm not saying this happens, but I'm just, So, but I guess I would love to see, I know in a lot of committees, the school committee used to do this, the school building committee did this, because we had a lot of correspondence. We'd get a list of sort of generalities of what comes in, so like applications, because they're all public record, we're just not seeing them. So if we got application for EDIC, 2 applications came in or something. I'm not sure what exactly, but it would be nice to see a summary of sort of how much and we do get a lot of correspondence, but I'm just concerned that we don't see all of it. And I just feel like as the select board, when people send something, the select board email, they're expecting us to see it.
So to that point, I do, I remember we did vote on, because it was a large amount of correspondence, and also I think we were getting some legal documents that didn't need to be in the public record, in that form. But I do think, and again, if memory serves, we voted to let Denise make the appointments based on the applications that were submitted. So I don't know why we would need to see all of the applications if we had already sort of outsourced that to Denise.
Well, it's in the bylaws. It's her job to make a recommendation.
Right.
It doesn't say that we don't see all the applications.
Okay.
And I guess I'm not, what I would like, and I don't know this probably ever happens, say 5 people apply for a particular position and 3 of them come up to me and say, I put my name in. And I trust Denise's judgment, it's her job to evaluate, but if we only get her recommendation, we don't know anything about the other people. We don't know if other people applied. And as the board in charge, I understand it's her job to recommend, but how can I say yes or no when I don't know what the options are?
But
So
then
that's just the part I'm uncomfortable with.
I have seen the planning board, I don't know if it's a packet or maybe their agenda, and I think Conservation Commission does this, as you mentioned. I think they have a synopsis that lists topically what has come in. And so there's a reference, and so if I look at my correspondence that comes with the agenda, I see specific items that were scanned for me to read in their entirety, and then I see a list beyond that of like everything else, but it's either by topic or something, so that, emails between, this office and so about X. And so then I can decide whether I wanna read it and inquire about it. That's what I would like. And I think to Ellen's point, it gives us the option to just understand what else is there. Hopefully that isn't, go ahead.
No, I guess, our concern is where do we draw the line? I mentioned to Ellen, we get a ton of emails, do I need a permit for this? What's going on next door? Those to me, yes, they come to the select board email address, but they're not intended to come to the board. They're intended to come to the office for daily business. I've said outside of the appointments, I would like someone to show me what you're not getting that's actually addressed to the board, because Phoebe and Joyce actually took offense to the statement that they're not providing documentation, because they are very meticulous. When something comes in, it is printed and put in that. The issue with the appointments, and we've talked about this privately, is, I'm not in the business of saying, well, I don't want, this person shouldn't be on this committee, this person, I don't think that's appropriate for me to say why we're not recommending people.
Right.
The charter is you appoint on my recommendation, so if I'm only recommending a candidate, I've said you can certainly call and ask if there are other applicants, but I think if you're going to change what's being provided, it needs to be clear, because, they get inundated with emails. And so if you want everything, if you want some things, if you want more than you're getting, I think, quite frankly, for them to document what's come in, that would be their whole job, documenting all the emails and what categories they fit in. So I think if you're looking to change that, I think there needs to be some specifics as to what you're looking for. If it's the appointments, again, I have no problem with it, but then when the time comes, don't say, why aren't you putting this person forward? Why did you put this person forward? Because then I think that's inappropriate for our residents that want to be on a board, that for some reason, there's someone that I feel that's a better fit or whatnot. That's why I've been hesitant to say, these people applied, this is what I'm putting, quite frankly, the school committee interviews last week was awkward, because you have to pick one person and other ones are like, well, I put my name and why aren't I in there? So I do that behind the scenes.
Right.
To avoid sort of the public discussion.
Right.
Again, I'm fine with any of it, it's just we need to have a definition of what you want to see that you're not getting now and how it will be utilized, I guess.
Hector.
I can't find the specific section in the charter right now, but the way I had read it is that it's up to us to see all who have applied and to take your recommendation along with that. I know I would like to see it just to know who has applied for what. If there's someone that's been applying for a lot of things, and I know that there's an interest there to be a part of town processes and town committees, that can affect how I decide whether the person should be appointed, or maybe make a suggestion that they try for another committee. To me, it's nice to know, given how hard it is to get people to volunteer for things, it is nice to know who is volunteering. I'm also, when it comes to correspondence, again, being a newbie on this, when I send something to the select board before I was on the board, I expected my communication went to the select board. I'm maybe naive in thinking that anybody that sends something to select board at stow-mass-ma.gov has the same expectation. I also felt that becoming a member of this board put me in a position where I was expected to at least know about all the correspondence that came to the board. And yes, it can be painful, and sometimes it can be reading things like really long contracts with cable companies. But that's part of why I put my name on the ballot to be a member of this board. There are some parts of this position that may not be the most glorifying, but that's why I'm still willing to do that part. And I like the idea of the synopsis. These are the things that came in. If it's something like, how do I get a permit for my event? Yes, that's not something I necessarily need to see. Legal stuff, I don't know where I would fall on that. I'm assuming that would need to go to the town council, because I'm not a lawyer and I never played one on TV, so I have no idea how to address that stuff. But when it comes to applications and things like that, I want to know who's trying to get involved and what their interest is, and I certainly still also want to know what your recommendation is, but I want to know also who else is interested in being a part of this town and town government.
So let me say that, if I were to send an email to the select board and say to select board, we will get that email. Like, there's no question about that. If somebody just sends a general inquiry, I mean, Phoebe and Joyce are amazing at being able to cull that. So I never have a question about, I mean, there's stuff sometimes in the packet that I'm like, why did I need to see this? Like, that is more what it is. So I don't question that part of it. The appointments, I can see both ways, and maybe there is a way that we can, I don't know what it is, because I do understand that there are reasons, if the charter puts in Denise's care who to bring forward for an appointment, that says to me that we trust her judgment, and her judgment is what's bringing it forward. So it gets a little squishy to me to say, but I wanna see, I'll say we had like 5 people who applied for something. But I do understand what you're saying as far as that, so I'm not sure how to land on that particular thing.
Well, I think that's the question that comes up is, what does the charter say? Is it the town administrator's responsibility to bring forward only the recommendation, or is it should the board see all the applicants, but also take the town administrator's recommendation into account?
Yep.
And that's, in my
It's gonna
bad.
be Jonathan.
Oh.
And that,
Madam Chair.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I thought you were done.
No,
Nope,
go ahead.
you're still-
I kind of agree that I think there are times that I've felt embarrassed that I heard after the fact, perhaps, that, I mean, I think it's important for us to know that there are people who would like to be involved. And I know that there's an awkwardness if there could be, I very much trust your judgment. I think part of what we're talking about, or what we've talked about in the past, is establishing behaviors which set a precedent, because I think part of our small town character is, well, this is the way we've always done things, and people like to have habits and get habitual. So I've certainly experienced where, for boards and committees, people showed up at the board or committee and were interested, and maybe that still happens, and they watch for a while, and usually sooner or later, somebody says, hey, you've been coming to a lot of our meetings, why don't you join? And so that's somewhat transparent to at least the people in the room. I think I'm embarrassed if I were to hear that someone wanted to try and be involved, and they weren't put forward. Some people think that we know everything. And so if we're in the position that we don't know what they're talking about, it's awkward. So how do we handle that so that, I think that part of what we're all talking about is that there are times that being a person is awkward, because we talk about, we like, I'm drawn to some things more than others. I love to make art. Not everybody does. So I am not good at trivia always, because I'm an artist. I think with my crayons, So I might not choose a trivia junkie to be on my art team. And those awkwardnesses just have to be handled professionally and with all of the rules that we know we have about that, So I think that's part of the conversation, is that we are bound to behave properly around
Right.
these situations where things are awkward.
Right.
And within, I think it's important to figure out a way to be as transparent as possible and just deal with the awkwardness.
Yes.
I think it's extremely hard to talk about this subject in generalities. You've identified a specific situation. Are there any other specific situations that we need to address? If it boils down to applicants, let's find out what the charter says, and then I'm going to go to bed. I'm serious. We can't keep talking about in generalities, I wanna see emails that are this, or, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So let's find out what is the specific awkwardness that you've experienced and what is it about? And, cause I remember when I was on the board and we had the paper things, we got copies of all the applications and we got copies of their social security numbers and we got copies of their home address. It was so inappropriate, it was unfunny. So I defer to the process that the charter says, and if it's just applications or just some awkward experience, let's be specific and see if there's a way on that specific issue we can resolve it so that Denise and the team in the office just say, we got 4 applicants for this position. After review, we selected these, and that maybe you list the names of the other ones. I don't know.
Yep.
But we can't just, I feel like I'm in a movie where it's never ending. I'm sorry, we just.
No, I agree. I do think it's, what I'm hearing is that it really does boil down to applications. And so I think if I'm hearing this correctly, we can keep the correspondence the way that it goes. And if
something new
comes up,
to Courtney's point, yes, we have to respond professionally, but
right,
let's raise
Right.
it specifically so we know.
Right.
Otherwise, we're just,
spinning.
yes, spinning's the
Yep.
perfect word.
Yep. No, I agree. On another note, we don't have minutes from last week?
No, Joyce has been out sick.
Oh,
She
right,
just returned.
that's right, okay.
But before you get to another note, how are we leaving this?
Do we have to vote on it?
I just don't know what you ended up with.
So I think
Sorry.
the
I think we are, yes,
specificity
yes.
was applicants. We need to know what the charter says. You've indicated one thing, Hector's indicated a potential other thing, but he can't find the language right now.
I just did.
Fine.
The 2 points of language that I found, and I don't know if there's other places in the charter, and I'm assuming Denise knows it better than I do, but section 3-2, paragraph D, appointment. The Board of Selectmen, which obviously that part needs to be updated, shall appoint such members of multiple member bodies who are not elected and individuals who are to serve as representative. So basically it just says, it's up to us to appoint the people. Section 4-2, paragraph B says that the town administrator will, it doesn't say will present the people, but will make recommendations.
To recommend for
appointment or removal by the Board of Selectmen. So nothing says who is presented. It just says that it's up to us to appoint, it's up to her to recommend. But there's no clear, between those 2 paragraphs at
Alright,
least,
so
there's
then
no clear voice as to
I'll make
who's
a
presented.
recommendation that when you get more than one applicant, you give us the names of the others? Is that fair? Yes, no? I'm
It's up
open
to the board. It's,
I think that would be, at
Is that,
minimum,
does that affect the awkwardness factor? I mean,
well, I
My
think,
only
sorry, go
sorry,
ahead.
no. My only concern with that is that if, say your neighbor applies for something and they wanna know, and we know that they've applied for it, but somebody else who is much more qualified
it's not our
Applied
decision.
for it.
We just say, yeah, I know you've applied. Good
Okay.
luck.
And that's all you wanna know.
That's because the charter says the
That
town
Denise makes the
administrator shall
appointment.
appoint whatever the language was. And we just say, yeah, I know, good luck.
Okay, great.
It's really great that you're participating.
And I'd say another specific, this was the first time actually I talked to Denise about, was someone who had applied for a position And her feeling was he wasn't qualified and there was no other applicants, and I agreed with her, it's like, yeah, we needed to wait. So that's an additional sort of awkwardness, but it's also in terms of transparency, it's like, I think Denise saying, we have yet to see any qualified applicants is enough for me. I don't need
It's
to know the
enough.
name, I just,
So you don't need the names.
well, in that case, I mean, I think it's more awkward in that case to know the names. But
I do, I feel like we're trying to put a generality on a
I am
specificity
trying-
and it's,
okay.
and
So then let's just keep it the way it is.
I think I'm fine with it staying the way that it is. Because
I thought there was a concern that we weren't hearing the full story and just getting the selected person. If that's not the case, why have we been spending half an hour talking about this?
it's actually, stop, I don't appreciate your attitude about it. It's not important to you, but you're sort of dismissive of it, and I think it's really important.
It's not about
it's a
you.
hey, here's
No, I'm
the
just
thing.
saying, I think
So I'm
this
the
is a
chair.
transparency issue.
I'm the chair, everyone's gonna be quiet, because I just did a delightful police department training update with how to run a meeting. And we're going to, you can disagree offline, but we're not gonna do it right here in the meeting.
All right, I will
What
step
we're
back
gonna
then.
do is, I have not heard anyone move forward a motion to change the way that we handle correspondence. And I'm not hearing it now. You want to change how we handle correspondence, Hector?
Yes, I wanted to see, at least the names of all applicants.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, then, does anyone in favor? All in favor?
Well, I defer, I thought you
Could we have
just
some
said you
discussion?
didn't want to do that, so whatever you guys
I wanted to
want.
give a specific example of when it was more awkward, but I still think we should see the names.
Okay, so,
So I would say at a minimum that we know that there's been an application. So I just wanted to set that as a potential, I'm sorry, this is taking a long time. I really am.
I'm sorry, I've been feeling, I'm making you feel pressured, I just,
okay,
I've been there.
so. We have how many? All in favor? 1, 2,
So you have a motion.
yeah, I had a motion and a second. In favor,
favor.
yes.
I'm abstaining, I just don't understand the issue, so I'll
Okay,
just abstain.
and I'm gonna abstain as well, just because the motion passes,
Carries,
it
sure.
carries with 3. Okay, having said that, we have any correspondence that we wanna talk about? So much correspondence.
There was a lot. I had a question about the Collins Foundation settlement agreement correspondence. Was information about the agreement sent to nearby residents? Should it have been?
It was in the newspaper and it's on our
It's,
website.
yeah, it's,
Okay.
it's in a lot of places. It's in all the places.
And we did a formal press release.
Okay.
I just want to say, I appreciated Alan's email about the wells, and I think, I hope that the Board of Health will, because he directed that to the Board of Health, I believe, right?
Yeah, you
Yes.
copied us
It
on
was
it,
long,
yeah.
but it was,
Yeah.
so, just wanted to thank him for that.
And there's still the question about the code of conduct issue that has come up
There is.
a couple of times.
I'm not really clear on why it is, no one agreed on it, so why would we bring it back? Literally, that was like one of the most contentious meetings ever, so if there's a reason to bring it back up, and everyone wants to be as transparent as humanly possible with it, that's fine, but I'm not putting something on an agenda to just have people come and argue.
So we tabled that until we could get more information. So
Yeah.
people are wondering if we've got enough information yet. So I think maybe we need to figure out a way to be clear so that people aren't wondering if it's hanging over their head.
I see what you're saying. I was not planning on putting it back on another agenda. It seemed pretty loud and clear that that people were not, that there was enough divisiveness on it that it, let me put it this way, we have through the state, ways to deal with people who misbehave and who do not follow the code of conduct. I think this code of conduct was put forth by Denise in order to sort of stopgap some of that and sort of say, you know, we're dealing with this on a town level, but if people don't wanna deal with it on a town level, the state has it in place, and certainly people can file all the complaints that they want that way. Cause I don't know how to push that forward in a way, like I don't know how to ask people to behave nicely and sign something where they have to follow the rules that are laid out. So I'm not putting it back on unless somebody else on the board wants to ask me to, but that's where I stand on it. Ellen?
Well, I mean, I agree it was a contentious meeting, but I guess I heard it differently, that it was unclear to some folks here whether the board was just gonna make the sort of a solo decision, or whether it was gonna include, since it was gonna impact committees as well. And I thought one option, and I think Courtney had offered to do some editing, which she has done, but is to distribute it to, or make it available to say, you know, we'd like committees to consider it. I mean, we adopted ours last year, and so
Right.
the question is, this was done with that sort of extra umbrella, as you just put it. I can't put it well, but, so that was sort of my impression. I might have been wrong, maybe I've remembered that wrong, but.
Courtney, did you? And I'll get you in a second.
Two things. One is I think it'd be appropriate for us to resolve it, but I also think that, I already said that. I think one of the issues was that there were people that felt that they did not have enough time when we first went on our agenda
Right.
to process it. And people spoke from staff and perhaps from boards and committees. And so I think if we wanted to put it back on the agenda, I'm not saying I do specifically right now,
I hear you.
but what we would do would be to circulate it and invite comment in some way, and I understand that it's more work to process the comment, but I think if people have to abide by a set of rules and we're in a somewhat democratic system, that's probably a fair approach, to at least, I mean, I know that not all rules are vetted by the people that have to follow them, but I think
Yeah,
that would perhaps be an approach.
yeah. Yes, and Hector, yeah.
It seems to me like there was an issue, and there's some question about how things can be handled, and I think it'd be worthwhile understanding what the question was. When I first saw the code of conduct discussion, I didn't understand why there was a need for a code of conduct. I haven't looked at the charter and the bylaws. It still looks like, as you pointed out, there are processes in place for people who misbehave to be addressed. Yes, we can't tell people to behave. They're adults. They make their own decision whether to behave or not. The only area I saw a question about is elected officials. The only avenue for to take for any elected official that misbehaves is either submit a complaint with the ethics board or initiate a recall vote, which I'm assuming would be sufficient if someone who's elected misbehaves. I just went through the ethics training and it's still fresh in my mind. It specifically says thou shalt not exceed your authority and be abusive. So yes, somebody who's elected becomes abusive, an ethics complaint should be filed against them. So it seems to me like it's all addressed, but there's some question about, some people seem to have a question about whether it is addressed, and maybe we should at least just clarify.
Yeah,
These are the steps that can be followed
right.
when an issue arises.
Right, and I think that's certainly something we can talk about.
So I'm curious when you say there seem to be some issues about whether we should have it. The people who were here were adamantly opposed to it. There was a significant concern that we were overstepping. That's what
I was one of them, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
that we were overstepping and dictating, and I was of the opinion with Megan that we're done with it. Why do we need it? Because as you're saying, and both of you are saying, that we've got the tools. But then you had said to me, or you said here, that you really wanted to pursue it, and I didn't get a chance to ask you why you wanted to pursue it. I mean, is there a reason that I'm missing that why we should pursue it?
I don't think at this point I particularly want to pursue it.
Yeah.
I don't feel that, I mean, I really feel that whenever possible, the way to deal with things is to be in a conversation with each other, and
Yeah.
if, things start to get wild, then we figure out a way to calm down, period. And we don't have to have a set of rules to follow to do that. So
Okay,
Yeah.
well, if you're okay with it, and
I just want to make sure that the people watching on TV understand that we're done, so. So that they don't have to ask
Got
us,
it, got it.
well, are you done yet?
Yeah.
Are you gonna do it or
Right,
aren't you?
right, right.
Are we still,
Yeah.
so.
All right.
Can I just reiterate that we do not tolerate bullying and harassment of employees in any way?
Yep.
Exactly.
And should there be any type of lawsuit, the first thing an attorney is gonna do is ask for our code of conduct or something that's been signed off on. So that is really the reason, it's recourse that we show that we protect our employees and we don't tolerate that.
Got it.
I'm fine if you choose not to, but I want to reiterate, because quite frankly, my feeling from that discussion was that we don't care about the employees, that it's more about volunteers and protecting their feelings than the employees that were being bullied, to the point that we had police get involved in instances. So I would like to reiterate that as a town, we do not tolerate harassment and bullying of employees in any fashion,
Got it.
by anyone.
And I have to say, I'm sorry.
No, hang on one sec.
so then I have a question I didn't understand that was driving this. So is it required that we have a policy on bullying of employees? If that's a requirement,
Then I think we need to
then
put
we
it back
need to
on
do
the
it.
agenda and do
So
it.
I guess I just misunderstood everything.
Well, so it's not a policy, I mean, yes, there is state law about harassment, and we have, but, when Hector was running for the board, he and I spoke, and it was, well, why doesn't board and committee members sign off on all the town policies? And they don't. Board and committee members don't, we have an anti-discrimination, an anti-harassment, a pregnancy in the workforce, we don't have board and committee members sign that. Consolidating on the one policy, if you'll recall, on the draft, it listed all of our policies on the back page that people are saying, yes, I understand. There's no requirement to have it, obviously, insurance company, they're all gonna ask. I mean, I hope we're not in that situation, and I hope we have addressed the concerns and the situations that were taking place. But that's why it came about. It came about because there was a reason that led to something coming forward, because employees were being mistreated. And it was more than one employee, and it was more than one time. That employees were coming to me that they were gonna quit, they weren't gonna go to these committees anymore, they did not feel comfortable being in a room with certain people, board members that were appointed to committees. And so that's what started it all. I think quite frankly, I think some of the people that want it to come up wanna just fight about it and want to argue against it. And I don't think that's productive. I think that, as long as we take a position that we will not tolerate it and we will take any necessary steps to address if there is complaints, then I think that's fine. But that is why things like that are recommended. They're recommended by our attorneys, by insurance companies, as a layer of protection for the town should a lawsuit or something happen.
So I think we should put on the agenda for employees.
Having said that, because the employees then pushed back,
Oh,
do we need to circulate that to the employees first?
yeah, it seemed like everywhere we were hearing was, this is terrible, you guys are awful. So, yeah,
I want to make sure that if we spend any more time on this, putting it forward, that it is something that is going to benefit people in town. Be it board members, be it employees,
Well, no, board members are off,
or be it employees.
just employees for legal purposes.
So, do you? Why don't we put it on the next agenda? It'll,
For
everyone will be
employees.
able to make.
Just,
What am I putting on the next
so what
agenda?
you just said.
Did you have an employee, you had the employee
What she
code of
just said
conduct,
was,
there
as
was
long
like
as we're
3 together,
committed
you think
to-
we're all committed?
Oh,
Sorry,
so we don't need a written policy?
sorry.
Sorry.
Okay.
I thought you said lawyers would look for a written
Well,
policy.
they will, there's not a legal requirement to have one, but that's what they will say, show me your policies.
Okay,
In any case, any type of lawsuit that happens usually with employees in a town, or in any business, show me your policies.
Right.
Show me what people have said they will and will not do, and why did you take the action you did.
right,
As Megan articulated, though, we do, there are a number of state laws that we fall under. Again, people know it's not okay, I mean, people should know it's not okay to bully, but yet it happens. It was just another way that we could address it and say, your actions are not appropriate. You said you would, this is what you've agreed to and you're acting outside of that authority.
it was like a way to belt and suspenders, the
Okay,
policies that we
maybe I'm
already had,
just not
like
hearing
it,
things,
yeah,
but
so I just.
I thought you were saying we need one. If we don't need one, then I'm just gonna sit back.
Okay.
Because I'm obviously not listening tonight.
No. Alright, anybody else? I'm gonna take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Alright, we're out of here, thank you all.
Take the vote, all in favor?
Oh, yeah,
Oh, yeah, right.